Is Tucker Carlson a devil? Look behind Tucker. What's that word? Fatima? Is it a sign of reverence? A nod to the Virgin Mary's 1917 apparitions at Fatima that warned the world about Russia? No, that's a cigarette ad behind Tucker. A pagan mockery. Millions of believers and popes take Fatima seriously, reverently, but not Tucker. Tucker loves aggressive Russia. He defends Russia's brutal war against the most religious country in Europe. Yes, that's Ukraine. So is it any wonder he mocks those who die for faith, family, freedom?
In a spiritual attack by a demon?
Yeah, by a demon.
There are forces that are not human, that do exist in a spiritual realm of some kind, that we cannot see.
When I warned against U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine when the Russia-Ukraine war kicked off.
Come and visit Ukraine. Find your biolab.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I breathe the mountain air, man. Travel, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. I've been to Reno, Chicago, Fargo, Minnesota, Buffalo, Toronto, Winslow, Sarasota, Wichita, Tulsa, Ottawa, Oklahoma, Tampa, Panama, Mattawa, La Paloma, Bangor, Baltimore, Salvador, Amarillo, Tocopilla, Barranquilla, and Padilla. I'm a killer. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts.
Come and visit Ukraine. Find your biolab.
Travel, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.
If you say you love me madly, I gladly be there like a puppet on a string. Like a puppet on a string.
Don't bow to the bosses. Don't listen to their lies. Us poor bones, we're not got a chance unless we organize. So inside are you all marching the Baku? Oh, inside are you all? Oh, inside marching the Baku? Oh, inside oh, inside
Before I move on to Bill Cole, Will, was this story that JP just said right now about the hurricane where it did not have anything to do with the money for Ukraine? Is this news for you, or was this something that you were already aware of?
I'm not familiar with like the timing and remembering back to there. I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? Like that Biden just sat on some aid, and I'm sure that, the Zelensky admin and the Ukrainians have plenty of beef with Biden over, slow walking, because he kind of, the way the Biden administration operated was just to make sure that wars weren't winnable by anybody. That was their default. They thought that, their method of foreign policy was like, we just freeze conflicts as they are, and nobody ever wins. Then that's the right way to run the world.
By a team of lawyers. And
right.
No one wins. Some people profit, but some people profit.
Right. That's Israel to me, right? Like Biden just was like, we'll give you just enough to but we won't let you actually win the war and help these people get out of all their tents that they've been staying in for 2 years anyway.
And the Hunter Biden thing as well with Burisma, is that
I didn't know that about that it was pro Russia. I mean, it's like all I know is Ukrainian oil and gas company.
From Cold War proxy killings to modern day assassinations, Moscow has consistently used foreign nationals and ethnic proxies for covert operations, keeping their hands hidden. In 1978, Bulgarian dissident Georgy Markov was killed on a London street with an umbrella containing deadly ricin by Bulgarian agents acting under Moscow orders. In 1981, Turkish gunman Mehmet Ali Akça shot Pope John Paul II. Investigations pointed to Bulgarian secret services, again, with Soviet oversight. JP2, perhaps agreeing that Moscow was behind the operation, successfully obtained Mehmet's pardon. In 1999, a series of apartment bombings killed hundreds in Russia. Officially blamed on Chechen separatists, credible investigations suggest Russian security services orchestrated these attacks themselves to justify war in Chechnya. In 2006, former Russian spy Alexander Litvinenko was poisoned in London with radioactive polonium-210 traced directly to Russian operatives who disguised their identities internationally. In 2016, Russia plotted an attempted coup in Montenegro, recruiting Serbian nationalists to violently overthrow the pro-Western government and assassinate Prime Minister Milo Djukanovic. In Berlin, 2019, a Georgian Chechen dissident was assassinated in broad daylight by a Russian operative traveling with false international papers. Russia casts a wide net. For decades, they invited both senior Democrats and Republicans to Moscow and St. Petersburg. They paid Hunter Biden a lot of money. They have built up their own presidential candidates in Romania, Georgia, and surely elsewhere. At other times, they seek to undermine voices by creating the illusion of Moscow control, or they make the public think they are much more powerful than they really are. Remember Kyiv in 3 days? Russians are practiced at the art of deception, so keep this in mind when you hear of strange plots in Europe and elsewhere.
All I know is the Ukrainian oil and gas company. And that's another one of those things that leads to this fundamental skepticism. We know that the Democrats have been just intimately involved and their children with Ukrainian interests. It's enough to make you be like, okay, right, skeptical.
And Will, if I could interject on that, because that's one, and it's been so hard to report on that. So especially when Biden was in power, the media did not want to, you couldn't criticize Biden at all. Among MAGA people, the narrative of Burisma being Ukrainian is so ingrained, almost like an article of faith. But Burisma, the CEO, was a member of the Yanukovych government in charge of Ukraine that the Ukrainians kicked out in 2014. He fled the country in the revolution and he went to Moscow. 2 weeks after the revolution was successful here, in Moscow, Burisma's CEO met with Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's business partner. And Devin Archer is kind of a dummy. Like, he said this in congressional testimony in 2023. And he's like, oh, wow, I never really thought about it. I was meeting with Burisma's CEO the day that Putin took Crimea, and we were in Moscow. And so Burisma had an incentive to get control back of Ukraine. And what do? They start paying a huge amount of money to the son of the United States vice president who was in charge of Obama's Ukraine policy. And Biden did nothing to help.
Right now, Ukraine is crucified.
There's been a big change in apostolic succession between Francis and Leo. Francis was very confusing with regard to the conflict in Ukraine. He was often praising things from Russia and almost seeming to criticize stuff coming from Ukraine. Really significant for anybody who has a well-informed conscience about how to respond to what's happening in Ukraine because of Russia's invasion.
He could have chosen anything. He could have chosen the migrant crisis. He could have chosen, but he has chosen to define himself by this, at least for now, in the beginning of it.
Pope Leo has been crystal clear in saying we're working with our Christian brothers and sisters in Ukraine for what are justly their rights, and a just peace is not going to be what's been mentioned in the last month, ceding all of this ground that was basically occupied, that there were wars and lots of carnage. That can't be rewarded. Pope Leo hasn't said those words, but the fact that he's been aligning himself with the suffering Ukrainian people.
Right now, Ukraine is crucified. And it is clear that the Lord who has chosen the cross is choosing also this people, this land, to show his power, to show his truth.
Volodymyr Zelensky, representing Ukraine, does his best to make peace. He traveled to Rome to reconcile with Donald Trump. Trump met him. They spoke about possibilities. Volodymyr Zelensky then traveled to Istanbul in an attempt to meet Vladimir Putin, but Putin refused to show up. Instead, he sent hundreds of drones and missiles upon Ukraine. Who wants peace? On May 14th, Pope Leo met with the leaders of the Eastern Rite Catholics, including His Beatitude Sviatoslav, the leader of Ukraine's Greek Catholics. The Pope said that the Christian West needs the mystical spirituality of the Christian East, and that these churches, which have an Eastern-style liturgy and married priests, point the way. The Church needs you, Pope Leo said to these Eastern Rite Catholics. We have great need to recover the sense of mystery that remains alive in your liturgies that engage the human person in his or her interiority, that sing of the beauty of salvation and evoke a sense of wonder at how God's majesty embraces our human frailty. Under Francis, it seemed that the Vatican was timid about promoting Ukraine's Greek Catholics for fear of angering Moscow, which during Soviet times made Greek Catholicism illegal and even today restricts its practice in territories of Ukraine that Russia occupies. Western Ukraine is predominantly Greek Catholic and arguably the most actively religious part of the country. Under Moscow, its churches were made into gyms, libraries, and warehouses, but today they are thriving, including the garrison church of Peters and Paul in Lviv, Latin name Leopolis, which nearly every day hosts the funerals of Ukrainians killed at the hands of invading Russians. If Americans saw the real Ukraine, they'd support it. But they only see through the filter of Macron kisses and elite media, which Americans don't trust.
Here I come.
Here's a look at the real Ukraine, the Texas of Europe.
Мене замурзана махра, а я хотів тримати економічний фронт, а у житті не завжди все йде гладко, тож доки пес патрон.